Jazz Club. Really flying the music. Okay.
Good evening. Hello, welcome, greetings, and salutations. It's Thursday night again, and on the East Coast it's 8 p.m. It's 7 p.m. here in Houston. It's some other time wherever you are. We got some people on the West Coast, so it's 5 p.m. there, and all sorts of things going on today. We want to welcome you back to the 10th episode of The Death of Cliff Huxtable. This live reading of fan fiction and panel discussions, it's just been amazing. We, from week to week, have just been growing this project, sitting around the campfire on a Thursday night. Even during COVID, we are, just kind of building our community and telling stories. We hope you all are someplace safe, that you're well cared for. We see that there's a second wave occurring right now, and it just does not sound like we're going to be on the other side of this anytime soon. It seems like states are probably going to be closing up again, so please take care and precaution. Wear your mask. I have kind of, accumulated a bag of masks, if you will, from friends who've made masks and masks that I've ordered, and it's just, it's such a tricky thing to have to do it, but we have to do it. You have to protect yourself. And you have to protect others. What else? It's so much going on in the news right now. Watching this administration kind of deny the severity of what's going on is just mind-boggling. And the people who believe that this is a hoax. I think about those families who have lost loved ones, and certainly they can attest that this is very real. And so please treat it as such, and wear your mask and wash your hands and social distance and all the things we heard back in March. We need to kind of revisit all those again with an element of commitment, and know that in some cases, in some places, like here in Texas, it's probably going to be actually even more dire this time around than it was in the spring. So, there's that. We hope you're well. You can let us know how you're feeling and what you're thinking and all the things by commenting on the live stream, either on Facebook, if you're watching on Facebook. Hey, Facebook people, what's up? If you're watching on YouTube, we say hello to you. We're broadcasting ourselves via YouTube. And so please leave comments there, participate in the chat. And then we're also broadcasting on Twitter via Periscope. So share. I think Amarachi Ede, our publicist, and Cam Swan, I want to say Cam Newton, football player, ain't even doing no live tweeting on our behalf. He needs to. I think it would be right up his alley. But Cameron Swan, my social media manager, they're going to be live tweeting on my behalf. So if you see me live tweet something, chances are it's one of them, but it's me. But it's one of them and it's me. And so, leave your comments and communicate. We can see it here on the thread. We'd love to have your participation, as tonight we're going to actually raise our spirits a little bit and have a little bit of fun. I think prior to tonight's episode, the series is called The Death of Cliff Huxtable. And we've had these really tough conversations, surrounding the content. And I think tonight we're going to bring a little bit of lightness and levity to the experience. Tonight we are reading chapter 9, The Twins.
May 29th, 1962. Dear Claire, the seas are rough. Waves bouncing beneath storms and sickness all around. I'm fine, but I'm sick too. I'm homesick for you. I miss you beyond the reach of my duty. I love the Navy, but I love you more. I will marry you, Claire. I'm going to enroll at Hillman. I will attend medical school, become a doctor, a surgeon, and be your husband. We will have children, 2, maybe 3. I see my future with you, and I am walking towards that future. I'm coming home to you. Love, Cliff.
Wow. Are all these letters from Grandpa to Grandma?
Yeah, looks like it. Most of it is from Granddad to Grandma, but I see Grandma sent him some letters too. Man, Granddad did not stand a chance.
Well, I mean, Grandma was a catch. Look what picture she sent Grandpa Cliff.
Oh, let me see.
You see it?
Oh, okay. That's not how grandmas are supposed to look. Yikes. Man, he did not stand a chance. But what does her letter say?
Let me see. All right. June 30th, 1962. Dear Heathcliff, days pass slowly waiting for you to come home. I want to be excited that you will be attending Hillman, but for a sweet afternoon and a stroll by the lake near the church, I want you to myself.
Okay, continue. Why did you stop reading?
I am not reading this. This is a private letter.
Winnie, they're all private letters. Just read them, girl.
Okay, Nelson, you're being creepy grandson right now, and it's weird.
Okay, girl. Well, if you're not going to read the letter, let me read the letter. Ow! What did you do that for?
Because you're being an asshole.
No, you're the asshole.
Nope. I'm not the asshole. I'm the asshole's twin. We are not identical.
I can't stand you sometimes.
So?
Insane. Oh, Winnie, look. It's more letters from Grandpa Russell to Grandma Anna.
Really?
Here, I'm going to read this one. You should take a few.
Okay.
Let's see. Ooh. August 17th, 1945. My dearest Anna, and my only love. Your love gets me through these long days of war and death. I listen to the song in your voice over the constant firing of weapons and the cries of the barely alive. I am barely alive without you. I miss you, Anna. When I come home, I'm going to marry you. I'm going to make you my wife and live the best days of my life as your husband. If you will have me, love me forever, as I vow to love you. In this letter, you will find a photo of me. All the fellas and I took photos to send our loves. We had to share the soup, but it was worth it. I was thinking about making it home to you when they took the picture. As soon as this war ends, our lives together will begin. I'm coming home to you. Yours, Russell.
Wow. What was the date on that one, Nelson? I'm going to see if Grandma Anna responded.
The date was August 17th, 1945.
Ah, here it is.
Okay, let me hear it.
Okay. September 1st, 1945. My love, I do not know what news gives me the greatest joy. The war being declared over, you coming home, or me getting to be your wife. Oh, Russell, I have loved you and only you for as long as I can remember and for as long as I live. I think on our life together. I think of the children we will have together. I pray for girls, 2, maybe even 3 daughters, because this world is not as kind to Negro sons. When we get you home from this war, we will never be apart. My life waits for you. Come home, my love. Come home with me, forever yours. Anna. Wow. We come from people who love deeply.
Yeah, we do.
And thus ends the reading of Chapter 9, The Twins.
Wait a minute. There's another letter.
Really?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, it was tucked into the side of the fabric. Deep hidden somewhere in some type of secret compartment.
I think you should put that one back. Yeah. And thus ends the reading of Chapter 9, The Twins.
No, we gonna read this letter here.
Who was it from?
I don't know. It's addressed to Cliff, but there's no return address. Just the address.
Let me see.
No. I don't think you should read that one. I think you should put that one back.
And why not?
Because it was hidden. It was hidden. Clearly, it's not a letter your grandfather wanted anyone to read. There you go. And yeah, that ends the reading of Chapter 9. Yep, there it is. That ends the reading right there. It says chapter. That's it. That's it.
Nelson, do you think Granddad was cheating on Grandma?
No, never in a million years would she cheat. Never. Come on now. You know better than that.
Okay, Nelson. Granddad didn't cheat on Grandma. Like, he would never do that. Never in a million years. It's
Never.
just a letter that's tucked away, you know. It's no big deal. Okay?
Okay.
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 Okay then. Now narrate.
Okay. All right. Nelson places the envelope on the bed and unfolds the letter. A single photo drops out of the honeysuckle scented paper. Winnie picks up the photo as Nelson brings the parchment to his nose for a sniff.
Man, this smells good.
Winnie stares at the photo, trying to recognize the beautiful Black woman smiling back at her. She has never seen this face before, but she recognizes the smile of a woman in love. And while Winnie examines the photo, Nelson begins to read the letter.
September 13th, 1958. My darling Cliff.
Whoa.
Yeah. Nelson stops reading and scans the 4 pages of handwritten musings to get to the final page for a name. Upon reading the salutation, Winnie asks his sister,
Winnie, who is Eunice Chantilly?
Yeah. Thus ends the reading
Thank you,
of
Lord.
Chapter
Let's
9.
end it now.
We need to talk to Granddad today because he's gonna have to catch these hands.
These people are up and found these hidden letters, these secret letters, and we are on the precipice of introducing you all to Eunice Chantilly. But before we introduce you all to Eunice Chantilly, we're going to have a discussion about relationships and fidelity and what constitutes cheating. In our panel tonight, Secrets and Lies, what qualifies as cheating. I think it's a bit more nuanced than just calling it cheating per se. So we'll talk about a number of things when it comes to relationships tonight and how we show up for our partners. Let me introduce you to our panel. Our panel is an amazing collection of people. We're going to start off with Dr. Derek Blackwell. He is a colleague of mine at Prairie View A&M University. He is an assistant professor of communication. I don't know, Dr. Blackwell, shouldn't that be a little bit different? I'll let him talk about that when we bring him up. His bio, as he sent it to me, says assistant professor, but I know otherwise. At Prairie View A&M University, drawn to academia by a passion for teaching and mentoring. He teaches a variety of courses dealing with media, culture, and society. His previous research focuses on the impact of new digital tools on romantic relationships. Makes sense that he's here today. He has written on a number of topics in this area, from the design of online dating websites to depictions of digital romance in popular media, to the way new technologies impact understandings of infidelity. Marla Renee Stewart, M.A., Marla is a force, a absolute force. First of all, she's stunning. Look at this picture. She's a sexologist and a sex coach who runs her own sexuality education company, Velvet Lips. She is also a co-founder for the Sex Down South Conference and the Sexual Liberation Collective. When I tell you, just by extension, my life has been touched by Marla. She and Rev Shell are very close, and I just marvel at the work Marla does. She has studied human sexuality for more than 19 years, y'all, and has been featured on a variety of media outlets, as well as spoken to various audiences around the world. Rev Shell, yes, is a metaphysical minister, family constellation facilitator, and clinical hypnotist. She guides women as they connect the dots from their mother wounds to issues in their relationships, career, finances, fertility, health, and parenting. She does this with a trauma-informed healing experience that breaks generational and subconscious cycles of pain between daughters and their mothers. I know this woman's work very well, because she also happens to be my wife. And I couldn't be more happy and proud to have her not only on this panel, but just kind of walking the walk with me on a regular daily basis. And so thus ends the reading of these people's good bios and into the panel discussion. Hey, y'all.
Hey.
How's everyone feeling this evening?
Good.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Staying safe, staying socially distant, quarantine. How are you all managing the pandemic?
Doing the things you said, staying in, wearing masks, trying to find ways to stay busy.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
Same. Staying inside.
Now, Marla, you're in Florida right now, right?
Yes, I am in Fort Lauderdale. Correct.
Wow. And so you're in a region that was among the first areas to test out the waters, pun intended,
With the opening,
with reopening and whatnot. How did that impact you where you are?
Well, it didn't necessarily impact me too much because I stayed inside. But there are, people were constantly out and about, and but I have been social distancing, keeping my space, staying inside, and just sort of waiting it out to when it'll be safe. So
yeah. Dr. Blackwell, how about yourself? I mean, what sort of activities or ways to keep yourself, engaged in the world and teaching and all the things during this COVID time?
So I'm teaching a summer class right now that's wrapping up next week. I have a 4-year-old, so that's always entertaining and busy. I bought an Xbox, so I'm playing video games, finding things to do inside that, can keep me busy and sane in ways that I can, trying to read and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. And Michelle, what have you been doing to keep yourself busy during COVID-19?
During when it, can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good.
What have I been doing? I have been, so when it first started and we were working from home and everybody was going to school, we have Emma, our granddaughter, who lives with us. And so time was spent between homeschooling and working. And that was in combination of tasks, I'll tell you. I'm glad school's over and we can just enjoy the summer now. And now we're just getting ready to pack up and move to our new home. And that's kind of what's been occupying me for the last few months.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get right into the conversation tonight. The conversation at hand looks at relationships and question of fidelity. And, and sure, the question posed is what qualifies as cheating, but I think it's a trickier question than that. I think, we're whole, fully formed human beings when we go into our relationships that go into it with history and previous people who have their, fingerprints on our lives before we go and get into the relationship that we're in at present. You tell me, what let's start the conversation off with the whole merge and purge sort of point of departure in terms of what can you hang on to from previous relationships before you start to cross into that space of, all right, you got to let that shit go. You know, you're not with so-and-so anymore, or that letter that Cliff, or I'll come back to this debate about that letter in just a second, but that the letter shows up and the twins read it, and clearly these are relics from the past and something very endearing to these people. What's the point where you have to start to let that stuff go?
When you enter a new relationship. So, I mean, it's interesting. Like for me, actually, even throughout a lot of my relationships, I kept a lot of my letters. I kept a lot of pictures. And what I realized is it was just sort of like, what am I hanging on to? And so I was just like, okay, well, this can go to actually the, you know, lesbian herstory archives or whatever. So like, let me, you know, there's some context there. It's not like it didn't exist, but let me go ahead and move it to somewhere where it's not in my space and, you know, can it influence my, you know, current relationship in any way. So, you know, it's one of those things that's just hard to gauge on if you find something like that. I can't even imagine if somebody had found, like, what would they say or do? Like, why are you hanging on to this kind of thing? I think they would feel some type of way. So
yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that's probably going to come up a lot in this conversation is that when we're talking about these sorts of boundaries, it's really the sort of thing that has to be negotiated on kind of a case-by-case basis. Try to have like a one-size-fits-all set of rules and parameters that applies to all couples just doesn't work. And so there are some relationships where it might be, you know, don't ask, don't tell, don't say anything about past relationships. And then other situations where, you know, a couple might feel like it's fine to bring up and to hold on to old things as long as, you know, you have an understanding that that's the past and this is the present. So I think it really depends on the situation.
Yeah.
I think we've had this conversation several times ourselves. And like, I know for me, it's very much about I get to decide when I let go of certain pictures or certain letters or when I purge things, and that has to be solely something that I get to decide. And I think my wife is very much the same way. For me, I wouldn't respond very well if somebody were to come and say, I looked through all your stuff and I don't understand why you're keeping this and what does that mean, and then internalize it and make it about their an indicator of how the relationship is going. I just wouldn't respond very well that way, and it would be like this huge violation of privacy, and even the demand would be huge red flags for me, because I come, like Terésa said, I come into this with a whole history behind me that made me who I was, that you fell in love with. So for me to erase those pieces of myself because it makes you feel uncomfortable, well, then we'd have to have a really, really solid discussion about who we are as a couple.
Mm-hmm. So in the story, in the reading tonight, the twins found this letter, right? And it seemed like, and in my writing, I left it up for interpretation. I see there's already one comment in the viewer comments. Was it open or unopened? And the importance of that question rests in who hid the letter. Or was the letter even hidden? Like, was it just somehow, kind of tucked away, in some secret little spot in the suitcase? Or was this this mysterious 4-page letter written by Eunice Chantilly, something that Cliff actually received and opened and purposely hid? Or was it something that maybe Claire intercepted and tucked away and hid from Cliff? Before we try to unpack all of that, what what space does a partner have in terms of, I know you touched on it a little bit, in fact, all three of you, but when does it become an act of deception to keep correspondence from a person? You know, even if you break up with a person and maybe it wasn't on the worst of terms, do you as a partner expect to not ever have contact with that person again? You know, so do you understand the question? I think what I'm asking is there the expectation of cutting off contact with an ex after you've moved on to someone else?
That's interesting. And I feel like it's so individual. I know for me personally, I am still friends with all of my exes. Right. So like the letters can go like, because, you know, those relationships are in the past, but I'm still friends with them and I still value a lot of their friendships and still love them dearly. So it would feel like a violation if somebody told me like, oh no, you can't talk to this person again, or, you know, for whatever reason, or if I just wasn't authentic with myself and cut them off because of what my new, you know, in my new relationship, what that would mean. So I think I think that it is purely up to individuals. So some folks are like, I can't ever, you know, be with my exes or see them ever again. So
Right.
I would agree with that and just add that I think a lot of people understand infidelity as being kind of characterized by secrecy. And so in this case, you know, we don't know a lot of information about, you know, who hid the letter and who knew about the letter, who didn't know about the letter. But oftentimes, if there's secrecy involved, the follow-up question is why. And so people, you know, even if there was no inappropriate interaction between the two of them, the secrecy is often read as kind of a cover-up for something more. And so that's part of why it often raises these sorts of red flags for people.
Sure. Sure. So you bring up the word inappropriate. What qualifies as cheating?
I think anything done in the dark that you can't share with your partner, that you have to do in secret.
Okay.
I mean, if we're talking about in this conversation, I think that you know, if you there's lots of ways that you can cheat. You can cheat emotionally, you can cheat with time, you can cheat, you know, with, you know, actual physical contact. There's lots of ways, but I think if you can't have a conversation or you're hiding something from your partner, then it's venturing into that lane of what you can call cheating.
Yeah, I mean, in my own work, one of the things that comes up is this idea that because the boundaries are different for every couple, challenge often comes in the ways that people usually bring some sort of idea in their own mind as to what infidelity is, and often don't articulate that until there's a perceived violation. So it's, you know, in my mind and in my heart, I know what cheating is, and I assume that you think the same thing I think. But then if you do something that I don't like, then we have the conversation. But by that point, it's often kind of too late to have because somebody's been hurt. So it's really about negotiating the boundaries so that they're clear, to avoid the sorts of conflicts that come out of it. But oftentimes people don't really do that until, like I said, something goes wrong.
I was going to say, you know, there's a third option for this letter that maybe Claire and Cliff decided together that they would just stuff it away and it would just be there, and neither one had to get rid of it, or neither one hid it, or, you know, didn't open any of the possible scenarios. I don't think that we've talked about that. Maybe they could have decided together that they just put it in there.
Sure.
Not gone, it's tucked away.
Well, let's talk about Eunice Chantilly a little bit then. If you remember the show when it aired, tell me what was your impression among the three of you? What was your impression of Eunice Chantilly? Who was she to Cliff and to Claire, for that matter?
To me, she was like, I never got the real impression that she was this mysterious other person, that she was just a part of their life and she was somebody that Claire would tease Cliff about. And it wasn't this big thing that, you know, was wedged between them, but just something that they would just banter back and forth about. That was how I saw it.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. I think, and this is the thing I maintain where Eunice is concerned, is that television is about lean writing, right? Because when you watch television, you're watching content up against a ticking clock. You got 22 minutes to tell a fully realized story, or you got 46 minutes if it's an hour-long episode to tell a fully realized story. And so it has to be lean writing, right? So everything counts, everything matters. And in my mind, in thinking about Eunice, and there's no secret now, if you've watched the show or if you've watched this series repeatedly, you know that Eunice is among my favorite characters, is my favorite character, despite the fact we never saw her, is because Phylicia Rashad played the reaction to Eunice in such a disdainful way, like, nothing got under that woman's skin. Like nothing rocked her at all, right? She can go toe to toe with Elvin and his chauvinistic ways. She can, you know, all of a sudden bust out in Spanish and, you know, defend some person in a courtroom where everybody's speaking Spanish and no one expects, you know, this to come from her, and bam, there she is. And, you know, she is, you know, that song, I can clean up the house and make the bacon and bring home the woman song. That all of a sudden my brain locked up. I can't think of it. She was the model for it, right?
Yeah.
I can bring home the bacon and burn it up in the pan. You know what I'm trying to say. And she pretty much depicts that as a character. And then, of course, Phylicia Rashad's portrayal of her just adds to the quality of person this character was, right? And that's her Achilles heel. If you go back and you watch the series, the shenanigans that Vanessa brought to the table, Denise's inability to make up her mind on, you know, who she wants to be or what she wants to be in the world, and Eunice Chantilly. 3 Achilles heels for that woman. And so when I think about being a writer myself and working in film and television, I know that the rule of television is it must be lean. I took Shonda Rhimes' masterclass, her writing masterclass, and it's driven in your brain. Television writing is about lean, right? So it is on purpose that Eunice she stokes that fire, right? What is it, would you say then, in stoking that fire, the writers wanted to do between Cliff and Claire with Eunice? Like, she then becomes a vehicle for a very particular thing. Is it just teasing? I mean, I know that was your answer, but in giving that context, is it still just teasing?
It's seductive. You know, it's seductive. It is a tease. It helps you to, you know, draw the imagination, like thinking about what are all the things that are going on. And so I think that is the seduction in and of itself of the show, is just, you know, the tension, the tension. You need some of that. You need some of that to go with the show, to be like, what else is going on here? What happened? Or yeah.
I think, like you said, it gave her a dimension that, because Claire was perfect. Like, she was the perfect mom, the perfect lawyer, the perfect wife. But it gave her this, it made her vulnerable to something. Like, something could get to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it also go ahead. I'm sorry, Derek. Go ahead.
I mean, I was just going to say, I think that part of what I liked about the writing that you've done is that it carries over the ambiguity of the show. So there's an ambiguity about who she is and what the story is. And even in this chapter, there's still a lot of ambiguity. I mean, we've talked about the whole, like, who hid the letter stuff, but there's also, like, what did the letter actually say? And what was the actual nature of the relationship after that? And, you know, given the topic that we're looking at today, I think that's a big part of how infidelity often works. So there's lots of ambiguity around it. And so what ambiguity allows you to do is to kind of project your own ideas onto it. And so, for some people, they're reading Eunice Chantilly a certain way because that's kind of, what they want to see, and it reflects a certain way of thinking that they may have. Just like with this whole letter situation, you might read this chapter and say, oh, he cheated, or you might read it and say, oh, nothing about this says to me that he actually cheated. And so I think that ability to interpret different ways and project different ideas onto it is part of the strength of it.
Sure. I think, sexual energy in particular gets us reacting to things in a kind of wonky sort of way, because all of a sudden we get defensive instead of just saying, yeah, it was a thing or it wasn't a thing. It was just there's this insistence that if it's somehow connected to our sexual selves, it has this other layer of either beholden to a particular person or, oh, I'm just fancy free and this, that, and the other. And the thing that I think that makes me just so drawn to Eunice, again, by way of Claire, is that it made Claire sexier to me in a way. Oh, that just sounds so awful. It just seemed like, I was like, leaking out over Claire. No, I think what it is it sets this sort of Eunice sexualized, in my mind, the relationship between Cliff and Claire. Because all of a sudden there was this other woman, right? And I just find it interesting that this idea of other people participating in our lives either amp up the sexual, narrative or the lure of a person. I know plenty of people. Let me tell you something. When I lived in Atlanta, there were plenty of people that I met who I heard, oh yeah, this person or that person, they're really cool and they got people flocking after them. And whether it was true or not didn't matter. It was the fact that you attached this mysterious activity to their sexual self that made them larger than life kind of character. Do you see some of that happening maybe with Eunice and even by extension with Claire even?
Almost like if, they had one of their little tiffs, it would, Cliff would feel like maybe she was fighting for him a little bit. And it was, that it would, I could see that. I could see that happening in a marriage. I mean, we've had conversations about, just messing around and joshing around.
Michelle keeps saying we had these, Michelle, that's how these people
there are a couple exes that I will teach Terésa about all the time. There's two in particular, and never do any of them ever I don't feel jealous. I'm not that type of person anyway. I don't feel jealous. I don't feel insecure. I don't feel threatened by them. But what it does to her, it makes her get blushy. And then when I get a little bit, what's the word? Territorial, when I'm playing around, I think it makes her feel, oh, you love me. In that, silly, friendly, loving kind of way.
Yeah. And I think we saw that banter between Cliff and Claire happen very naturally between Bill Cosby and Felicia Rashad whenever the Eunice Chantilly character was brought up. I asked our actors, Denee Davis and JeJuan Jennings, to rejoin us as well, because I want to hear from these two young people who, for whom, personal relationships tend to exist in some cases very publicly online. You two, Blackwell and Marla and Rochelle and myself, we've had the benefit of existing in a time before the internet, when maybe necessarily the internet did not need to know all the things that we were thinking or feeling and posting and tweeting and YouTubing and TikToking and Snapchatting and all the things.
Yeah.
Jesus, the tools you have to show your love. Tell us, how does the social media platforms and what qualifies as cheating for you all, given these constructs?
Oh, cheating, liking somebody else's best, okay, so say you're sitting with your significant other and you're intentionally in their face, you know, liking another person's, whether that be same sex or opposite sex, you're liking their picture, you're commenting things that are something you should be commenting on, or like something specific that you should not be saying. That's definitely cheating.
So wait, time out. So wait, I hit like on somebody's picture.
Here's the
wait. Let me tell you. Okay, so here's an example.
Okay, here they come. Here they go.
Here's an example. So just this weekend, I was at Surfside and I had on, had on my cute. I don't have it on right now. I had on my cute little crop top, my blue little tight little, shorts. And somebody had inboxed me, an old friend inboxed me and was like, wow, oh wow, with the heart, emoji. And I was kind of like, don't you got a boyfriend? Why in my DMs?
Say that.
Why in my DMs? You need to, boom, you need to go.
I think with our generation, like when it comes to the whole social media thing, it can be a good thing and a bad thing, because I don't know if y'all heard this, but I seen on Twitter that somebody said, back in the day, like before there was social media, like there were whole families being made the next block and the woman wouldn't even know. So now it's like, everything is out in the open, and it's like,
and everything
if you Betty and Mr. Cliff over there chilling with Miss Winnie, and she got a whole family now, and Miss Betty don't know.
I think I do some other families.
So what we're talking about is a element of privacy.
Yeah,
that one could get away with something back then that they might not necessarily be able to get away with right now.
So I think that's where social media plays a part. Can it be the most at times? Yes, but there is levels to social media and relationships, because like, for instance, Instagram is made for liking photos and things like that. Sure. But it's to the extent where recently, got out of a relationship because entertaining people, like flirting right there in front of your face. And it's like, okay, we chatted about this, we talked about this, and yet you're still doing it. There's a level of, oh, this is a cute picture. Like, you don't have to comment. Commenting all these hard eyes and these little hearts on
none of that.
Because the same way you're liking and commenting under somebody else is the same way you slid into my DMs. So it's a lot of people cheating on people, like going to their DMs. Oh, hey, I've been seeing you for a long time, with their whole girlfriend or boyfriend on their header, and you're like,
didn't I just see you last week?
Didn't I just see you with your girl?
The tea. But
so there are rules in this this type of communication, is what you're saying. And there are certain engagements you can participate in that will not lead to trouble in the same way as if someone. So hitting like on a person's picture may not register as the same as hitting like and then commenting with X, Y, and Z.
With all the cute little emojis. Yeah.
Say something, you can say something nice.
So flirtationships would be considered cheating.
Yes, very much so. I mean, because think about it. If you're in the grocery store with your significant other and somebody's like, ooh, girl, I like your dress. Hard eyes. With they hard eyes in real life. And you're like, oh, so what is this? It's kind of like the same, it's kind of like stepping out of that boundary, because if I'm walking with my significant other and a girl tries, to bat her little eyes at my man, I'm gonna be like, okay, what's going on here? Do we know each other? It's the flirting. I think flirting definitely starts the cheating marathon. I don't know how to say it, but basically it's like the start of something that could lead into cheating. Like there's nothing wrong with flirting, but if you want to flirt and be single.
Period. What was the point of you coming? What is the point of this relationship if you're just gonna cheat anyway? You're
just gonna flirt. If you're gonna dibble dabble, if you wanna remember or regain that, oh, I still got it, then be by yourself. You don't have to have me try to have your cake and eat it too. That's exactly what that is.
Oh, I
Or
disagree with
or
that. Wow.
we can flirt all day, all night. Flirt with
Yes.
me. Don't flirt with
We're
somebody
together.
else.
Don't flirt. That's how you got me. I like you. You like me.
Yes.
So, okay. All right. So you hear that, Michelle? The flirting days are over unless we are flirting with each other.
Really?
Oh, I disagree with that.
I agree with that too.
Nope.
Jail.
I am
married.
married. Still flirt.
Right.
And it's fun because I like to flirt and I like to be flirtatious, and that's a part of my personality and part of me. So if you can't accept that part of me, then you shouldn't be with me.
Yeah.
But my flirting does not dictate that I'm going to be cheating or that I'm going to be doing something that is out of bounds of our relationship.
I have a question. So, what type of flirting do you do? Because there are certain ways to flirt. Like, because I see what you're saying. Like, it's easy to be a flirt. It's easy to, oh, yeah, oh, you talk about this? I can talk about this too. You know, kind of like that, like playing off of each other's energy. But what type of flirting do you think is crossing the line to cheating? Since you enjoy, flirting, and that's of your nature. So, like, if someone were to come to you and want a relationship with you, how would you, like, explain that?
Well, they should already know that I'm in a relationship.
Period.
So, I mean, if I'm flirting with you, I'm flirting. If they were like, oh, I want to pursue you, I'd be like, oh, well, that's actually not, you can't do that. Like, I'm not, I'm a one person relationship person. So, but it doesn't mean I don't like to flirt. And I love flirting. And I think it's very fun. And my wife is very supportive of, when I'm like, I want to go and flirt. Okay, so I have a question. So do you think that doesn't that build insecurity? Like, say I see you flirting, like how is your other partner supposed to feel and they see you doing that?
I think if I can answer this, the big part of it is to have these negotiations at the start of your relationship and really understand who it is you're in relationship with. I've known Marla for a long time, and I would be really, really surprised if she did not show up in all of who she was all the time. And I mean, she teaches flirting. Like, that's one of the things that she teaches. And it's just who she is. I myself am a flirt, and if I go out, my wife and I've had these conversations. I'm not going to flirt with somebody to the point where, they're thinking that it's going to go any further than maybe a smile or a wink or a, thanks for the drink. It's not going to go any further than that. But these are all negotiations that you have to have, like, at the start of your relationship. And so it's about getting into a relationship in a more intentional way and really having those, grown-up conversations as you're getting into the relationship.
Ooh, she said grown up. She said grown up.
No,
okay. Not a child.
Part of it is also I think what you do when you're young is you figure out, like, where those boundaries and where those lines are for you, so that as you get older, you have those really honest conversations because where your lines are, and when somebody's crossed them. You just learn how to communicate them better the more experiences you have in relationships.
Go for it, Derek.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the examples like JeJuan and Denee are using, because they're digital, part of what happens with that is that there's a permanence to it and there's a publicness to it. And when you combine those two things, it becomes a lot more contentious, right? Because, the kind of flirting that some of the other panelists are describing is like a face-to-face, it's a moment, it comes and goes, and there's no record of it. And maybe somebody notices it, maybe nobody notices it. But whenever you have something on someone's Instagram page or on someone's, Facebook wall or whatever, and everybody can see it and it stays there, then it leaves the other partner time to start the projection, right? They can look at it and think about what it means to them and interpret it how they want to interpret it. And it can fester in a way that's much different. And so I think that's a big difference.
Yes. Because what people do nowadays, it's like it's some,
a weird
I have
mechanism.
power. oh, I'm gonna embarrass her or him. Look, they're in my DMs. I thought this was your boyfriend. I thought this was your girlfriend. Oh, they all up in my DMs trying to tell me whoopty.
Clout.
Ha ha ha. You know, I stole your man. I stole your woman. Like, you know, it's that type of trend going on. And it leaves the other person very embarrassed. And I have been in the position before where I felt embarrassed. You know, you're loyal to someone, like what you guys were describing, like face to face, that's gonna happen naturally. But nowadays, people have no remorse. Like they have no remorse. Like they will literally go above and beyond just to know if they literally still have it. Like, and it's like, in a way, it's kind of narcissistic nowadays. It's more of, oh, I still have it.
And malicious.
I still got it. It's me. You want to be with me, you got to do with me. You know what I'm saying? And it's never a common ground. So that's why social media is like crazy now, because it's like you see all these relationship goals. People are like, oh, we're going to Bali. Oh, he rented a hotel for me and, you know, put candles and roses. And
it's a competition online.
It's a competition. Exactly. And like Dr. Blackwell said, you know, all these things can fester and you never know the person's real intentions. So it's like, okay, they could have seen it as a nice little, oh, thank you, smiley face, wink. But the person in the relationship could have been like, oh, why are you winking? Because now that you're winking, my friends are gonna screenshot this, send it to me in the group chat, and now I'm embarrassed in front of everybody. Now you're making me look a type of way. So that's social media gets crazy.
Yeah, one of the big issues with social media and communicating in general on social media is it's void of tone. It's hard to know, you know, tonally how a person's coming at you when they either send you a public tweet or message, or even if they quote unquote slide in your DMs. Now, okay, here's the thing with the whole DM communication. That tells us something about intention. Like if you can't put it to me on Front Street, then putting it in DM is kind of like having that letter that's kind of hidden away or tucked away, you know, where people can't see it. And so now we start to creep into intention. Like, what are your intentions?
Right.
And so coming back to the death of Cliff Huxtable in the chapter we just read, those of you who are looking forward to some answers about who is Eunice Chantilly, if you don't recall her from the show and you want to know answers about this letter, first of all, you have to tune in on Monday, because Monday we have a full episode dedicated to Eunice Chantilly. Her chapter is Monday. And what you'll find out is the nature of that relationship over the course of some years. I asked the group, you know, would it be better to have that chapter come first and then this chapter dealing with infidelity? And Marla said something interesting. She was like, well, you know, I think the order that it's in really works. And sometimes that's actually how we approach finding out the truth of a matter. We end up getting this moment of reaction, not response, which is thoughtful and, oh, let me go and investigate. Let me go and talk to someone. No, we get the stimuli and it sends us into a tailspin, a reaction. Who is this? Where that letter come from? What they say? What they mean? What you trying to do? And then the next episode gives us context, right? And it gives us a sense of, oh, that's why that letter is there, or that's who they are to each other. Oh, and in real life, that is also what happened. What this text message come from? What that person say in this text message? And then comes the context, right? Yeah. How much grace can we give people when it comes to social media or their engagement with other folks for finding out the details first, as opposed to jumping out like Denee and JeJuan have said, you know, it being this wild reaction? Can some of the infidelity feeling or the insecure feeling come more from communication, thorough, get off social media, even communication with one another?
Yeah, I think like you said, we just have to communicate, what is okay and what isn't okay with social media, because some people are fine with it and some people aren't. So it's like, the levels of, because if somebody comments under your picture, oh, you look nice today, no one's stopping you for saying thank you. But it's like the way you say thank you, the way it looks, the way it's going to be portrayed. Because what I like to say is, everybody likes to say, oh, it's not you I don't trust, it's them. When it's the truth. Because it's like, the way you say things someone can misinterpret that and like, oh, snap, I think they're trying to talk to me. Because if someone says, oh, you look good, the Twitters, oh, you look good. And someone can be like, thank you so much, exclamation point. Leave it at that. Boom. No emojis. No, okay, what you trying to do later? It's just set the boundaries, set the cutoff, because I think there's nothing wrong with acute flirting. That's what we're going to call it. Acute.
It's all medical now. It's acute flirting.
The little angle flirting. But there's nothing wrong with that. It's more of respect, I think, that we're looking at when it comes to social media and how it, correlates with relationships. I think it's more of a respect level. So if you want to say thank you to that picture, say thank you. You don't have to have the hard eyes, the kissing with the heart. None of that. You don't have to do that.
Are the rules different for men from men to women? Are the rules different for men flirting versus women flirting?
No. I've met a guy that would literally comment. This is one of my friend's ex. Literally would comment under somebody flirting with his girlfriend. Nah, bruh. She's mine. She's mine. She's good. She's good. Like, and it starts to look really controlling in that aspect. But no, yeah, it's weird. Like, the dynamic is definitely weird. But I think it's still kind of the same. Like I said, some people don't mind, some people do. But it's more of like the respect and the embarrassment that's like right in front of your face if it were to occur. That
Okay.
you like cheating on you.
I have a question for like the married people in here, like the people that's been together for a long time. The married people. Okay, so on that topic of what we're talking about right now, is that something that you talked about beforehand in a relationship, or something happened to where y'all had to talk about what just transpired?
Come on, cricket.
What do you mean? What is infidelity, or what?
No, not infidelity. The flirting, the flirtation is like when we're talking about the boundaries. Is that something when you got in a relationship that you talked about, or is that something where is it an instance where something happened to where y'all had to talk about it? So it's one that's addressed before and it's one that's addressed after.
Right.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I had been in previous relationships where people, felt some type of way. Like, I don't want to sound like, however I'm going to sound, I just don't want to sound like that. But I've been popular my whole life, my whole entire life since I was a kid. And because of that, some people, when I got into relationships with them, would be really, could be jealous. They could experience all these things. And I've had, people who have been controlling. And so for me, as I got older, I had to basically enter relationships as in, hey, I'm a really popular person. No matter where I go, what I do, I attract people. I don't know what it is, but people are attracted to me. So I'm very popular. And then number two, I like to flirt. So if you have a problem with me flirting and you have a problem with me being popular, then we're not going to work out.
Sure.
And so I think saying that ahead of time, but again, I had to go through, a few relationships to understand like, hey, this is something that's a part of me and it's not going away. So I have to enter into this relationship saying, this is all of me, take it or leave it. And, and it is what it is.
So trial and error. Got it.
Yeah. I think Terésa and I had some very specific conversations about how I showed up in relationships and how she showed up in relationships. So we had to figure out if that was workable for us. So yeah, we have to have those but we only knew that because we had been through stuff like Marla, you know, I'd been through relationships that were really controlling, and I just was not about to visit that again, ever. And so it becomes that line for you. Yeah. And we'll probably talk a little bit more about that conversation in tomorrow's episode, the specific conversation I had with Terésa about how I show up in relationships and what constitutes a relationship for me. Yeah.
So would you guys say it's more of would you guys see social media and the whole flirting thing as an insecurity aspect? Or like if someone were to feel some type of way, would you like deem them insecure, or would you deem them like, okay, well, maybe you don't know how to handle this person? Because like I said, you never know someone's intentions. Like, and a lot of people nowadays, like I said, the narcissism is strong nowadays, and it's very like manipulative nowadays as well. It's like, oh, I didn't mean it's just like Papa was a Rolling Stone. It's literally on national media now. So it's like, dang, like you're always watching your back, or you're like always making sure, like lurking, like all of that. It's crazy. So it's like, how do you know when to like break that off so you won't seem controlling and you won't like seem pestering to your partner? Like, how would you go about that?
I think it's just a product of like the technology itself. I mean, the same way that we like check our feed and check our messages all day long, there's a certain quality to the technology that kind of promotes that sort of behavior. And so like I did my whole dissertation about like the ways people use technology in relationships and the ways that it creates some of these kinds of issues you're describing. And one of the big things I found is like how much surveillance that people engage in of their partner through social media and through all these platforms. And sometimes it's the kind of thing that becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you check stuff and you become so obsessive about checking things that you can find what you're looking for, right? So you're already suspicious of checking consistently, then you know you can put anything together to make it, to create like whatever narrative you want to create. You know, I think part of what's different about this chapter is that, you know, they find this letter that's like a lengthy letter, right? It's not a flirt. It's not a little, you know, heart emoji. It's a substantive. And, you know, part of what's different about like real infidelity cases today is that oftentimes what's discovered is not just one letter by itself. It's a whole chain of back and forth. So it's not just I read a letter that somebody sent to Cliff, but I also get to read what Cliff said back, right? That changes everything, because suddenly I'm able to like witness the interaction between my partner and some other person. And so it becomes very hard for people to forgive or excuse that sort of stuff, because it's like, it's almost like being a fly on the wall and just watching the whole thing play out, which is very different than, oh, I found a letter that somebody sent him, and when I ask him about it, he says, oh, it's nothing, right? So that's kind of I think one of the significant changes between the old and the new. So like if Cliff was in this era, it would have been potentially a very different kind of story.
Yeah. You know, and by design, that's why I have two younger generation people find the letter that was a relic of an older form of relationship communication. And that, you know, part of the reason why I still have, you know, pretty much every single letter I've ever received from anyone, personal letters, not like, you know, bills and all that kind of stuff. All that stuff can go in the shredder way. I pride myself with still having pretty much every letter or note that a friend has given me, or when I was in college, you know, cards or letters my family or friends or whomever sent me, because they are kind of like time capsules in a sense. In the same way that I keep a journal. These letters kind of remind me of they're touchstones to where I was at a different time in my life, and what I was doing. And And Michelle, she likens them to like 8-track tapes, though. She's like, "You still got these 8-track tapes in here," and it's like,
I think he does have some 8-track tape, y'all.
But she would never throw away my journals.
No,
right? She would never. So there are things that feel like they pass the "you can keep this" test. Not to say that in my actual relationship with Michelle would she say I need to get rid of anything. That's just not the nature of who we are. But some things pass the, oh, that's a safe thing, that journal, or that mixtape that somehow you still have for whatever reason. But heaven forbid you find a letter that muses eloquently about days long ago. We're about at the time where I should be asking my guest the question of, who is your favorite Huxtable? And if different, which Huxtable are you most like? So we'll start at the top and work our way clockwise. So we'll start with Derek.
All right. So favorite Huxtable would be Cliff. I just thought he was funny then, and still I think the most like humor I find in the show tends to come from him. I thought he was just kind of like a cool older man. Like his style, the music he liked, all of that was just cool to me. In terms of who I'm most like, it was a challenge for me, but I think what I would say, not the whole of this person, but a small aspect of, is Theo. And the aspect of Theo that I kind of connect with and identify with is sort of his like transformed views of education. So like, when he's younger, he doesn't really like school and he's kind of anti-school in some ways. And then by the time he becomes older, he's, on the road to being a teacher and an educator. And I think that I had sort of a similar journey in that way. I actually had a conversation that, there were differences, but the regular people conversation that Theo has with his dad, something kind of like what I had with my stepdad around, I didn't really want to go to college when I was in high school. And now I'm a college professor. And so I think that part of Theo is something that I connect with.
Yeah. Marla?
My favorite was definitely Rudy. And I believe she was my favorite because we were the same age, like we were around the same age. It was just sort of growing up with her. And I think that's just how I related to her. And then I would say the Huxtable that I'm most like would definitely be Claire. How I really define myself in my personal and professional life, I think are very, very similar. So yeah.
Awesome. Michelle?
So my favorite Huxtable was Cliff. I grew up without a dad, so he was, I love the Cosbys and I probably watched every single episode, but he was the father that I kind of always wanted. And he was funny and he was engaging and he was caring and he was nurturing. And, I didn't have any of those things. So I connected with that part of him. My favorite, or who I most like, is actually not a Huxtable, but one of the friends. I was Peter, and I was the kid that would just kind of come and hang around and try to be part of your family if you were in the neighborhood. So I most relate to Peter.
That the airplane episode where the kids were riding Cliff's knee. Where they had to hold their arms out. Michelle references that episode and that imagery, and then we start laughing all over again because I can then see her as little Peter kind of.
Well, I remember when that episode came out, I was at a friend of mine, is my friend Tanisha, and she lived across the street from the middle school we ended up attending, but we had just got done like climbing trees or something for the day, and we went to her house and we were eating spaghetti and we were drinking Coca-Cola. And when that episode came on, I laughed so hard that I snorted Coca-Cola and spaghetti out of my nose. I could not stop laughing with Peter trying to hang on for his dear life.
That's awesome.
And I was like, I'm completely Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Renee?
This is a toughie. I would say my favorite, of course, is Denise Huxtable. I just love how Lisa Bonet played her character. Such a free, I'm a rock star, I'm a rebel, I'm just trying to find my way in life, but still, kind of be myself. But the one I will say that I'm most like is Vanessa. As crazy as that sounds, I think I am like Vanessa because I noticed how Vanessa was very self-critical of herself, and it just reminds me of me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm Vanessa. Every time she has a battle within herself, but she's witty, she's smart, and she's really like, I think Vanessa's cool. But it's a tough decision because I really love Rudy. Rudy's hilarious. I think as a child, I would have been more like Rudy as a child, but being a young adult, I definitely feel Vanessa a lot more.
Sure.
I think for me, my favorite slasher, I would have to, it's actually not a Huxtable. It would have to be Raven Simone's character, Olivia. I just felt like she was...
Oh, I said, I love Olivia.
Yeah, Olivia, I feel like every time she walked on into the screen, like she was just that ray of sunshine, that comedic relief. Every time she walked on the screen, it was just instant, like, girl, what are you doing? And it's just, you burst into laughter. You just knew. She was just that cute little thing. So it would have to be Olivia for me.
Awesome. We're getting to the part of the series where we're going to definitely hear from Cliff and Claire in their respective chapters fairly soon. But we're getting to that point in the series where we start answering some questions, right? And the first question we will answer on Monday is who is Eunice Chantilly?
Okay.
And before I get to this, though, I can get to this now since Laura brought it up. Thank you so much, Laura. Monday's episode is Eunice Chantilly. We are going to actually give voice to this dynamic, interesting woman who served more as a phantom for 9 years during that show. Whenever she was mentioned, there evoked this wonderful reaction from both Cliff and Claire. And then Monday's discussion after the reading will be the X Factor, different types of relationship structures. And I think this title might be a bit of a misnomer because we're not just talking about previous relationships, we're talking about different types of relationship structures, past, present, and future. But getting into Monday and then the episodes thereafter, we start to answer some questions that were curious to me, and hopefully folks will tune in and get those answers for themselves. I want to thank you all for participating in tonight's conversation. I suspect we could talk for hours about the nature of fidelity and infidelity and cheating and what have you. It's a slippery slope we are operating in right now with technology and social media and whatnot, and the availability we have to each other. But I don't know, maybe it could also, be a little bit fun to, in the, distance of a few keystrokes, you can flirt a little bit and harmlessly, engage with other people in the world that way. But yeah, continue to watch and share your thoughts of this episode, and join us on Monday as we hear from my favorite character, Eunice Chantilly. Okay, until then, have a great weekend. Protect yourself, wear your mask, do all the things that will keep you and your family safe. All right, bye guys.